be ready at 5:30.
We'll do a little dead air till 5:30. Okay, according to the clock on my computer, it's now 5:30. This is April 27, 2022, City of Salem Hearings Officer meeting. My name is Jim Brewer. I'm the City of Salem's Hearings Officer. Tonight we have one thing on the agenda. It is CUSPR ADJ DAP TRV DR 22-02 for the 3200 block of Boone Road Southeast. This hearing is obviously being conducted virtually. If we do have testimony from neighborhood organizations or persons in favor and in opposition, those will be limited to people who have signed in before 3 p.m. this afternoon. My understanding is no one signed in to do that.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. So the order of tonight's proceedings will be a staff report to be presented by Aaron Panko. The applicant's presentation, and we'll limit that to 15 minutes. Sounds like we would not have a neighborhood report, and we won't have any testimony that follows, which means that the applicant really won't get any rebuttal. You will have an opportunity to provide that final written argument. And then we'd close the public hearing. I want to direct everybody's attention to the applicable criteria found in the notice. The testimony and evidence for the public hearing should be directed towards these criteria because that's all I can make the decision on. For the conditional use, Salem Revised Code 240.005 sub D provides the criteria for conditional use permit. Salem Revised Code 808.045 sub D provides the criteria for the tree variance. Salem Revised Code 225.005 sub E sub 1 provides the criteria for a class 1 design review. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the city or other parties the opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the State Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. So if there's a point that someone wants to raise, they need to do it now or they'll waive it later. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Again, if the applicant has an issue with a condition, this is the time or place to do it, or you may not be able to later. For anyone who is attending this evening, are there any objections on jurisdictional grounds, meaning that this isn't the kind of hearing that ought to be in front of the hearings officer? Seeing none, we'll open the hearing for case number CUSPR-ADJ-DAP-TRV-DR 22-02, which is a pretty big breath by itself. 3200 block of Boone Road Southeast. Can we have the staff report, Mr. Panko?
Yeah, you bet. Can you see me and hear me?
I can.
And the presentation over here too?
It is in the correct form.
Great. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Aaron Panko with the Community Development Department, here to present the case for a conditional use permit, Class 3 site plan review, Class 2 adjustment, Class 2 driveway approach permit, tree regulation variance, and Class 1 design review for property at the 3200 block of Boone Road Southeast. At this time, I'd like to enter into the record the staff report, including its attachments. And then we have a supplemental report dated today, April 27th, that we'd like to include in the record as well.
And I got the supplemental report and I've read through it. And yes, everything is so entered. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. This is a vicinity map of the subject property. The property is located outside the urban service area. It's off of Kubler Boulevard, which is designated as a parkway. There's access to the property from 36th and Boone Road, which goes out to the northern boundary of the property. Boone Road is designated as a local street. The property does have frontage along Interstate 5 to the west. And then 36th Avenue is designated as a minor arterial. This is a zoning map for the property. The property is zoned IC, industrial commercial. Surrounding properties to the north are zoned IG, general industrial, and commercial office. The uses include a mix of residential, light industrial. There's a senior living facility. To the south is property zoned RA, residential agriculture. It's largely vacant. And then the area that's not shaded is property that's located outside city limits in the jurisdiction of Marion County. And there's a mix of industrial type uses in this area. And this is an aerial photo of the property. The proposed development occurs on the southwest portion of the site. It's kind of up on a hill and it's in that treed area. But this is part of a larger area here that includes these three parcels. The total area there is about 80 acres, but we're dealing with a smaller portion here again in the southwest corner. And there has been some development activity occurring on this property. Last year, a conditional use permit was approved for phase 1 of an apartment complex. It occurs on lots 1 and lot 2 that's shown on this tentative subdivision plan. So that's been approved already. The city has in review at this moment some industrial buildings and storage units for lots 6 through 8 that have frontage along 36th Avenue. And the city is also looking at a subdivision application, again, for this entire 80-acre parcel. The city has also approved a partition back in 2019 to divide the land here. And there is some questions and some uniqueness here regarding the 80 acres and the current configuration. The 3 parcels we looked at earlier here, this is not a legal configuration of land. The partition was intended to correct the legality issue, but a partition plat has not been recorded to date. So the subdivision is a possible route the applicant could go to correct the legality and record a subdivision plat. Or the applicant also has the option of reverting the property back to its last legal known configuration for the 80 acres here. So that does kind of come into play with some of the conditions and some of the findings in the staff report. This is a aerial photo, or excuse me, not aerial photo, but a photo taken from Boone Road, looking up towards the property. And then we have another photo here of Boone Road showing its current conditions, looking east towards 36th. The proposal includes development of a 272 unit multifamily apartment complex. Multifamily residential uses require a conditional use permit in the IC zone. And per the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan, multifamily developments should be located in areas that provide walking, auto, or transit connections to employment centers, shopping areas, transit service, parks, and public buildings. The property is located near the city limits boundary and is in an area that's in transition with many underdeveloped properties in the vicinity. There's not a public sidewalk network in the area yet to connect the property to existing employment, shopping, or public services, and transit service is not provided in the area currently. However, as this area continues to develop and grow in the future, these services will likely be extended to the subject property. And the city is in the midst of a multi-year project to update the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan, including a vision for future growth and development of Salem. This vision includes goals and updated zoning and comprehensive plan maps that reflect priorities that are voiced by the community. And the proposed map for this area shows a mix of commercial, industrial, commercial, and residential uses. The property abutting the south that you saw on the map earlier, is zoned RA, is proposed to be rezoned to an industrial commercial zone. And staff found, in summary, that the proposed use is consistent with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. The site plan review process ensures that any new development is in compliance with the development standards of the zoning code. In general, the standards include maximum building height allowances, setbacks, off-street parking standards, landscaping, and standards for solid waste service areas. The applicant did not request adjustments to any of those development standards of the underlying IC zone, parking standards, or general development standards. And with the recommended conditions of approval, staff finds that the application is in compliance with the approval criteria for site plan review. The applicant did request 6 adjustments to the multifamily design standards. And to quickly summarize, the adjustments include eliminating the parking lot location standard. Parking lots, shall be located behind a building and not in front. In front of a building adjacent to a street. The adjustments include eliminating, adjustments to pedestrian access standards on the interior of the site. So they have some options here for providing an interior corridor that goes through a few of the buildings in order to provide connectivity between portions of the site and other portions due to some topography concerns. There's an adjustment to allow an increased building length for one of the buildings, to reduce the setback requirement adjacent to the RA zoned property to the south, to eliminate the setback and buildable width standard adjacent to a street, and then to eliminate the direct pedestrian access standard for proposed building 7. And staff is recommending that the hearings officer approve each of the requested adjustments, and we've provided findings addressing each of those in the staff report. There are a total of 27 significant trees that are defined as Oregon white oaks greater than 24 inches in diameter, breast height, that are located on the property. And the applicant indicates that of those, 21 of the significant trees will need to be removed in order to develop the property. The trees that are designated for removal are within areas of right-of-way for future streets, within the footprint of proposed buildings, in the area of vehicle access ways and off-street parking areas, or are in areas that require some significant grading. So the applicant indicates that the location of the trees creates a hardship to reasonably develop the property, and that the removal of the 21 significant trees cannot be avoided. Staff concurs with the applicant's assessment and recommends the hearings officer approve the tree regulation variance. We did include a recommendation for a condition that has some mitigation for the tree loss, requiring replacement Oregon white oak trees to be incorporated into the landscape design for this development. And then multifamily residential development is subject to the design review standards of Salem Revised Code Chapter 702, which provides additional standards for open space, landscaping, site safety and security, parking, and site design, and then building facade and building design. The applicant has requested 6 adjustments to the multifamily residential design standards, and with the exception of those, the application is otherwise consistent with all of the multifamily standards, and recommend that the hearings officer approve this application as well. The public notice was provided to the Southeast Mill Creek Community Association, the neighborhood association out there, and then to surrounding property owners. We did receive 2 public comments indicating some concerns with traffic and the growth in this area. Staff has provided a response to those concerns in the staff report. We also received comments from Salem Kaiser School District and from the Salem Area Transit District. And Staff is recommending that the hearings officer approve the collective applications subject to the recommended conditions of approval. Thank you.
So I had a couple of questions. The idea of locating multifamily residences close to where there are services and it's walkable and those kinds of things. And the idea that, well, those services, the sidewalk system, the infrastructure is likely to be developed to serve this area in the future, kind of gives us a chicken and egg problem, doesn't it? That what kind of development goes in place is going to drive the infrastructure and the services that the market says, yeah, this kind of thing works with. Do I have any room there one way or the other with that policy to say, yeah, it's going to happen?
I believe you do,
Okay.
and that's our recommendation. And I guess, one of the things to point out is that, we did receive comments from school district and the transit district, and they're asking for some improvements with the development out here so they can improve the infrastructure. So I guess that's an example of if development's approved out here, some infrastructure is going to be taken to the site here to help improve the surrounding area.
That's a good example. Thank you. I'm not ever really sure what to do with we're in the process of amending the plan or regulations when it seems like yeah, but we're going to review this application under the standards that are in place at the time of the application. But it does strike me that, okay, if our conditional approval gets us close to where we think policy and code is going to go, that's an appropriate way to kind of condition things when we've got some discretion. Is that really kind of the approach staff is taking to this?
Yes.
Too?
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. Where is there a I-5 access off of, and I'm trying to remember, not off of Boone, but off of, is Kubler the next closest one?
Correct. Yeah. So there's an off ramp here on Kubler, just north of the site here. And then to access the property, Kubler to 36th to Boone Road. Okay.
So there's easy access there too. Okay. Very good. Thank you. And we may come back to questions after the applicant's presentation too. I think that's where we're headed next. Would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Yes, good evening. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it this evening. I'm Mark Lowen, and I'm representing MWSH Boone Road Property LLC, who is the owner and developer of the property for this 172 unit multifamily development at 3200 Boone Road. Just to give you a little background, we are a locally owned company. We've been around since 1999, doing multifamily and single family residential housing in Salem and the greater Willamette Valley. We live here, we work here, we're part of the community. And we recognize the growing demand for quality multifamily housing throughout the greater Salem area. And we see this site as part of that solution. This is phase 2 of our multifamily development for this overall 80-acre parcel that we're developing. The first, I think Aaron already mentioned this, the first phase, that's the northern portion, is 210 units, and this is 272 units. I have with me a very esteemed team, our development team. I've got Mark Grenz, Natalie, Jenny, and Brandy Dalton from Multitech, as well as Tegan Enlow from Enlow Consulting, our traffic consultant. We are here to address and answer any questions that you might have. Beyond that, we really appreciate the hard work and the great dialogue we've had with staff, Aaron, and the rest of the staff at City of Salem. as we have worked through, and this is a complicated, multifaceted application. This is a challenging property. You can tell by looking at it with the topography and some of the engineering challenges. There's been some head scratching. We've had to do some real work on that. We reviewed the staff findings and conditions, including the revised condition we got this afternoon, number 25. We support the staff findings. We support the staff report. We agree to the conditions and we support the recommendation for approval. Beyond that, I'm not sure if anybody else from my team wants to say anything at this point, but we are available to address any questions you have regarding the development.
Okay. One of the questions that I have is really about the tree variance.
Mhm.
And I'm frankly just curious about what the survivability of Oregon white oaks planted as landscaping trees is going to be. Do we have anybody who has any idea whether that would work or whether it ought to be some other tree that'll actually live there?
I was going to suggest Mark might want to address this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim. I've been in the land development work in the Salem area for about 45 years. So I believe that if we were successful at finding white oak trees to plant, and as has staff saying that those trees will adapt to the environment that's created from an urban setting. I think the dilemma that this part of the world faces with the mature white oaks is that no matter how well you try to protect them, when you develop around them and you build trees, streets and utilities, even distances away, you change the way the soil feeds them and stuff, and then they become somewhat weaker. And then of course, if you have an ice storm like we had, then they're devastating. And so rural trees don't adapt well to urban life. We've tried to save them on many different, not only in Salem, but other places. And we've done a pretty good job for the most part, but they're still difficult. But I think starting with an urban setting and planting trees, whether they're white oaks or whatever, they'll mature into a very nice tree canopy and survive in that. We have lots of older parts of town that throughout my career we've done that, and we have beautiful tree canopies. But that's a long answer to your question. But
Well, it's a good answer.
I think the smaller ones will survive because they'll adapt to what they have. So
Okay, that's a thank you. That's actually a good answer, a useful answer in terms of looking at the conditions and thinking about how that kind of mitigation for that variance works. So thank you. Let's see. I have to say, this is a pretty thorough application, a very thorough staff report. I don't think that we have any other testimony. So I kind of feel like the staff report itself has done a pretty good job answering my questions. The supplemental staff report answered one of the questions off the bat. So thank you. That duplication was kind of weird, and that was a head scratcher. Anything else anybody wants to tell me this evening? Aaron, you look like you're dying to say something.
I think I've said enough. This is my third hearing for the week. So
okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to say we're going to approve this. It'll probably take me 2 weeks to get the decision out, just because it's going to take some typing and some editing to put some things together. But you can expect an approval on this. It satisfies the criteria. I'm satisfied with the answer on the trees, which is one that I thought maybe we needed to change some if we were going to plant something that wasn't going to survive.
Just for the record, would the applicant like to waive their final written rebuttal period?
Thank you.
Yes,
I should have asked that.
We will waive the rebuttal. There's nothing to rebut.
Yeah, there's that 1 week final argument that If you wanted to give me something else in writing, you can. But I will take it you're going to waive that too.
I think we're going to be just fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. With that, the hearing is closed. As I said, it'll probably take me a couple of weeks to get a decision back to you. And with that, that's really all that we've got on the agenda this evening too.
All right.
Thank you all.
Good.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.